For Adidas, the laceless technology, their laceless lines are the absolute pinnacle of their boots. This being the X Ghosted Plus retailing at €280. There's a lot to pay for a pair of football boots. But these days, Adidas are also knocking out a 0.3 Takedown laceless model, giving you what a lot of people are after with that very popular laceless design at way less money. But is it worth your money at all? Let's find out. What's up guys, James here from BootWizard Boot Reviews, and yes, today we are looking at the Adidas X Ghosted 0.3 Laceless in the firm ground variation, which, a quick spoiler, is a vast improvement from Adidas, and I've been really impressed by their X Ghosted line as a whole so far. From right at the top, the Plus laceless model, which is possibly the best laceless boot ever made, the 0.1, now one of my favorite boots to wear, and it looks like their takedowns are coming along in a similar fashion. So do remember to like this video if you do want to see more Adidas takedown models, maybe the 0.3 laced or the 0.2. Get subscribed to the channel to pick those up, and of course you can check out all my other content on the channel right now. But let's jump into it. Are these worth your money? Are they worth picking up at this discounted price to get some laceless love? Firstly, we're not going to do too much comparison to the Plus level model because €280 against €90, this isn't exactly a fair comparison, nor is there much similar about these two boots. So we're going to pop these to a side and we're going to focus on the 0.3 laceless and what this has on offer as a laceless boot at a takedown price point. The upper is a dual mesh setup, so it's kind of two different types of mesh that are put together in order to create the majority of the upper, and you can see that by looking at these little holes that come through. That's the mesh patterning that runs all the way around the boot and also forms much of the structure for the boot because there's very little on the way of an internal liner, although there is an outer top coating which does protect that mesh patterning just a little bit. I pretty much always find that when you use mesh on takedown models around this price point, they tend to come out a little bit better than when you use synthetics. If you saw my review recently of the Academy level GT from Nike, they've switched to a synthetic, moved away from the mesh, and that was one of my main criticisms of it. Nike have stuck to a very similar setup in the laceless 0.3 here to what you got from the laceless 19.3, and it's not a bad thing. It's definitely a setup worth sticking with, even though the mesh itself, the patterning is different. Also, when you compare it to its predecessor, the 19.3 laceless, there is less texture on this. The 19.3 had a rib texture that replicated a little bit of what you got from the X 19.1. That has gone here, which I think is to the detriment of the boot, although it's not actually as slick as you might think. There are a couple of areas that feel a little bit on the slicker side, but on the whole, there's a little bit of a tacky sensation to the protective coating, which mainly runs around this bottom section of the boot. It's actually hard to see white on white. And then there's an uncoated or less coated area towards the top, which actually has more of a gritty sensation where the mesh is left a little bit more exposed. And overall, it actually gives you a reasonable amount of kind of grip and texture on the ball. For a boot of this price point, don't expect anything amazing, although it's around here somewhere. It probably has more grip, and never mind probably, it does have more grip and texture than what you're going to find from the 19.1 or the 19 Plus. Those are, no, Ghosted Plus and Ghosted, oh my god, this naming system's going to kill me. So this isn't going to provide you with anything like the raw barefoot feel that you're going to get from those other top end Ghosted models plus or 0.1, but it is fairly thin. You can feel reasonably close to the ball, and the laceless construction, even with that, it does fit fairly closely to my foot. Overall, it's not a bad start here. You also obviously get this laceless portion that's filled in, and this is a very simple layer of mesh with plastic on the back to stop it stretching. Adidas call it something fancy, but honestly, it is what it is. It's nothing fantastic, and this nightmare to clean. If you want to get the white version, don't expect that to be white for very long. The boot transitions about 2/3 of the way down from this very soft, pliable mesh to this much more substantial mesh in the heel, which is a good thing. You of course lose the external heel counter because this is not the sprint frame, and instead you get an internal heel counter, but this is a huge plus for me. There's been a problem in the past with Adidas Takedown models that they felt very, very shallow in the heel, and I felt like even if you don't actually slip out, that you're going to slip out of the heel, you're going to get heel slippage, and it's just a sensation I hated in Adidas Takedowns, and they seem to have fixed this recently across the range on the whole, and this is probably the best example. You get an internal heel counter that runs up quite high and feels snug around your heel, which is the best improvement that they can possibly make across their range of takedowns, in my opinion. Again, comparing this to the previous model, if maybe you're looking to upgrade, the shape is basically the same. The only difference is they've followed the same pattern as they've done with the Plus, the 0.1, by cutting off the top of that claw collar design at the front, making it that little bit more even, which is great because it doesn't bunch up on you quite as much. And if we're going to compare it to the boot that it runs directly alongside, the 0.3 laced, they are identical in every way across the upper. The difference being that this gets laces, it doesn't have that plastic backing to make this stiff and rigid. So realistically, they're exactly the same boot. This one with laces, this one without. And if you made me pick between the two in just pure upper terms, not taking into consideration the fit or the lockdown or the responsiveness, then you can go for either one. This has obvious advantages, which I'll get into. This isn't bad. You know what? For an upper on a €90 takedown, it's not bad. So the sole plate, the traction, also not bad here. So what they've done is offered this in an FG stud pattern. So this isn't MG or anything like that, even though you can pick that up. This is the FG pattern, which has exactly the same stud shape and layout as those upper models. So the 0.1, the Plus, they all have the same stud shape and layout. The difference is the materials. As you would expect for a boot at this price point, the materials are simply cheaper. The plastics used, the materials used for the studs, it just isn't the same. And of course, the biggest thing is that it doesn't have the carbon fiber, but I don't think at this price point, you can expect that. It still offers you a nice amount of stiffness and rigidity through the heel and the midfoot, maybe more so than you would be expecting, with a nice flex in the forefoot. Again, it doesn't have that carbon fiber responsiveness, but we're not expecting that here. And the best thing about this for me is that it's not overly stiff all the way up the boot, which is something that happens with takedowns sometimes. You just get an overly stiff feeling across the whole boot. It's not the case. You get a nice bit of flex in the forefoot, a nice bit of spring back, and again, it's not bad. The traction is reasonably aggressive, and it's going to make you feel quite responsive with the stiffness in the midfoot and the heel. For a boot at this price point, it's not bad. I'm going to say this a lot. It's not going to blow me away. And do I think that there's better options out there for this price point? That's always going to be. I'm always going to say go a season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons ago, find a boot that is on sale that's a top end boot. You'll get more for your money. But people always want to see the newest boot. They want the newest boot, and they especially want laceless boots at the moment. So we look at it from the objective price of what it is, what do you pay versus full price in the other boots. And it's all right. It's not bad when you look at what you pay for the boots that are around it. We might as well jump straight into value for money because I basically just covered it. It's a €90 boot. I think there are better options out there. If you pick up boots on sale, you can go and pick up the X19.1 at about €100 right now. So there's really no need to be picking this boot up. The only reason to pick this boot up is if you really want the most recent boot in a laceless model. That's literally it. Other than that, you should be looking at older models on sale that are higher quality than this. But if you want a laceless takedown boot of the most recent boot and you're going to pay full price for it, this is pretty much the best that you can get. Okay, let's do weight. Now, these are a speed boot, so despite being a takedown, we still want them to feel pretty lightweight. So if we drop them on the scales here, these are going to come in at 230 grams, which isn't bad for a takedown. However, if weight is something you're really concerned about over everything else, something like the Phantom GT Academy, which is around this price point, is actually lighter. The GT Academy is actually lighter than the elite level GT. So 230 grams is nothing to sniff at. It's not a problem for any boot, never mind a boot at this price point, but it's certainly not super, super light. There's lighter options on the market. There's lighter options at this price point. And finally, fit and comfort. Jumping into the basics, these are a true to size boot. I have advised going down half a size in the 0.1 and the plus variations. True to size should fit most people here. Absolutely do not go up half a size. And if you want to try and get a super close fit, you can possibly go down half a size. The heel lockdown here is much better than I anticipated from an Adidas takedown boot, which is really nice. The lockdown overall seems to be improved slightly from the previous model, and these are actually seeming to be a little bit easier to get on because the opening is a very rudimentary system, plastic with mesh, as I touched upon earlier. The shape of these isn't particularly narrow, so for wide feet, they should be okay, but bear in mind there's no adjustability. You can't loosen the laces. The shape is the shape that you're getting, and even though I have said these are easier to get on, this opening, the way this is designed, is going to be more difficult the wider your foot gets. So be wary of that if you do have wider feet, and you probably want to be looking at something with laces. The heel area also has a synthetic suede liner, which is a really nice touch. I love a synthetic suede. It grips onto your socks that little bit better than some of the synthetic leathers we've seen, and there's plenty of padding in here that doesn't get in the way. I haven't had any heel rubbing or slippage issues, and I feel really locked in this area, which is very, very nice. The responsiveness of the boot is average. It's nothing spectacular. Not having laces, being that little bit locked in, having a slightly cheaper setup in the sole plate, it's never going to be the most responsive boot on the planet. But again, it's okay for the price point. I feel like I need to put a counter on for how many times I've said that. And my advice pretty much always will be in these situations, if the boot's not terrible, at least it's all right for the price point. If this is what you really want, laceless newest model, go for it. If you're looking for the best boot possible at that money, it's not this, but it's all right. So I think Adidas have definitely upped their game recently in terms of their takedowns. The Predator takedowns, the X takedowns, even the Nemesis takedowns have all had improvements in the most recent generations. And if you're looking to pick up a takedown boot, you can do a lot worse than this, especially if you want to get laceless. While in the past I've always pushed people towards takedown models from Nike because I don't think Adidas have been up to standard, as of recent times, the gap has definitely closed quite substantially, especially at this 0.3/Academy price point. As you might expect, something that might throw a spanner in the works is a review I have coming very soon of the 19.3 laced, which is cheaper, and I will say it right now before I even make that video, before I get it up on the channel, this is a better boot than this, and it's cheaper. So if you want an X Takedown model at the 0.3 level, I will tell you right now, my recommendation is not to pick up the laceless, but to pick up the laced. Let me know what you think. Are you interested in the X Ghosted 19.3 Laceless? If you are, I'll leave some links in the top comment to take you through to a few trusted retailers that will be able to sell these to you at a good price. Of course, remember to like this video if you did enjoy this takedown review, and get subscribed to the channel because I've got the 0.2 and the 0.3 laced coming, as well as loads of other stuff like these lovely pink beauties that have been sitting behind me this whole time. But that's all from BootWizard here today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon.